Ryan started the fire! It was always burning since the world returning! Ryan started the fire! It was always burning since everybody was turning!
It's in our veins, soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh.
And Spicy Reg.
And we're grateful to have you on once again. We are grateful because there's so much to get into. Unfortunately, our hearts go out to those in Jasper and those in the surrounding area, those who were affected by the forest fires. We'll be talking about that today and all the finger pointing that's happening as per usual when it comes to politics. It's the province's fault. It's the federal government's fault. It's your grandmother's fault that didn't do anything 50 years ago. It all comes around that. We'll be talking about that, talking some things in the news. People getting a little upset about some things that are happening around the Olympics. We'll be talking about that a little bit today. And as well, what's going on with the polls in this country, where people are polling ahead, where they're not. And then as well, just, our favorite man of the hour, Trudeau himself, getting stopped on his favorite spot in the country, down New Orleans. No, I'm just kidding, not New Orleans. But down on the beach over in BC, he just got stopped by a good old homie of ours. I'm not just kidding, he's not a part of us, but we'll be getting into all of it. It was fun. It was fun to watch. Can't you hear my nervous energy? No, there's no nervous energy. I am just on one right now. I'm super excited. Happy to have you. Reg, how you feeling, big dog?
Like I said, I'm feeling spicy. Just have to say, though, that my weekend was awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent weekend. Shout out to White Sales Bakery. I know that they didn't sponsor us for this. They are just good people, and they deserve all the credit because they are doing really good things for the community. They've got awesome food. I was there with a couple friends of mine, and they had some of the food, and they bought like the gluten stuff, right? I can't eat the subs, right, unfortunately.
Totally.
But anyway, I got to try some of the smoked meat though that they had inside it.
Nice.
And it was really good.
That's awesome, dude.
And they had some gluten-free desserts, had that. And they did like a karaoke thing outside. So much fun. It was a blast. They have like good drink specials too. So with the guy I was with, he was like, this is going to sell. So we're all actually like planning like events and things like actually at that place now because the owners themselves are really, really good. And one of the things that they had said was they were like, I could be making $50,000 working for somebody else, or I could make $50,000 working for myself and be in control of my own business and be doing things for the community. So why not?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really inspiring. And then I was like, man, I gotta like, it actually made me start to think like, okay, I need to get serious about my business and actually start taking on clients and things like that. And thinking about how I position that while also still trying to work full time. But we'll see what happens with that. But definitely inspiring folks. And if you have a chance, if you're in the Halifax area, take a shot out to the ocean, out to St. Margaret's Bay, and go visit them because they've got some good food and good people.
Nice.
But awesome. Feeling spicy though.
He's feeling spicy. I think before we get into too much spice, we want to give an announcement to the homies. The first on this show, we've never done this ever, but it's been a crazy year. I think for everybody, we're all kind of feeling it. Been a weird summer. Been a weird 2024. And admittedly, myself, Reg, we've been feeling it as well. So much so that for the first time in the show's history, we will be taking an August break. We will not be putting out any episodes in August. This will be the final episode until September. First week of September. We'll be back September 5th with an episode on a Thursday. We'll be coming hot and heavy right after the Labor Day weekend. And we look forward to seeing you then. But yes, August will be break month.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, because I've got a young child and I've got family that's all coming throughout August too. And Josh, you've been busy with volunteering, lacrosse, your business. So we just need a break. Yeah.
Lots going on over here, and we still love you guys. And but we will be back when Parliament's back. We'll be back. When Trudeau's off the beach, we'll be off the beach, and we'll be ready to go. All right, Reg, what's in the news?
So basically, there's the bill C-59, which is the law that amends the Canada's Competition Act. Has been specifically altered so that companies can't greenwash is what they're saying. So basically trying to put anything in their advertising that states that they are somehow helping the environment when they may or may not be, which on the surface, again, sounds lovely. Sounds good. We want open, transparent communications from our businesses in Canada. The problem with this is that it's a little bit misleading because any company that could be doing something like as a carbon offset or something like that now can't claim that as a part of that. It's what they call CSR. So they're sustainable. Man, what is that word I'm looking for?
Resource?
No, responsibility.
There
Corporate something responsibility.
Oh, the second one.
Yeah,
Sure.
I can't remember. Too spicy tonight. Anyway, all I know is that the fines for a company who apparently get caught for greenwashing is $750,000 for individuals and $10 million for corporations. Like, that's absurd. Like, this coming from the government that can't keep its hands out of, money and is laundering it everywhere and is misleading the public. It's like, but if you stick the wrong sticker on your packaging, then man, you're going to have the book thrown at you. Whatever. So cool. Moving on. Olympics.
Oh no.
Everybody's going off about this.
Oh no. Why are we
going?
Don't touch it, Reg.
The organizers of the Paris Olympics actually came out and apologized.
Did they?
Yeah. So they apologized specifically to Christian and Catholic groups for the parody of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. They said that it was supposed to be open and supposed to be a way to bridge the gap.
Yeah, okay.
And create a narrative between individuals.
Okay.
Although the segment depicted Jesus Christ and his apostles that were drag queens, transgendered individuals, and a nude singer. I'm not quite sure how that's bridging the divide, but they had to apologize to the community because of all of the outcry over that.
There was a lot of outcry, man.
And it's funny because I've been seeing like back and forth, like people on TikTok going like, this is like hateful against Christians. And then people calling like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about Dionysus. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
Well, Christianity was kind of based off of the story of Dionysus. But anyway, it was like, it's a mess. So it's, anyway, I thought it was funny. I'm just curious of what your thoughts were.
Oh man, Pastor Josh coming in. Yeah. So for me, I don't know. As those who don't know, yes, I am a Christian and I'm very devout. I wouldn't say devout, but really strong. I hate using the word devout because it gives it a certain connotation. But very strong in my beliefs and my convictions on who Jesus is and what God is and what that's all about. And when I saw this, obviously, personally, I was just like, kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, oh, of course, that. But like, it is what it is. That's the culture we're living in. We live in a culture where they're very loud and clear that like we don't want religion in our mainstream culture. Period. And so I was like, yeah, so this is on brand for whatever they're doing. Like Christians don't really matter. What really caught my attention was actually my Muslim friends who were offended on my behalf. Who's like, pretty much said like, you're soft if you don't say anything about this. And I was like, fair enough. Well, this is what I'll say. Though that doesn't align with my beliefs, straight up. To come out and be all hot and bothered over this doesn't align with my beliefs. Scriptures are very loud and clear on do not judge those outside the church, but judge those very strictly inside the church. So I hope the ferocity and frustration you felt towards this whole presentation, you're applying to those within your congregation, specifically, people who maybe not upholding Christian values. I hope you bring that same energy to them. Secondly, scriptures are also very clear that it's not up to me to, to defend God. God doesn't need no defense. He don't need me. He's a creator of the universe. Why does he need me? He doesn't need me. Jesus was on the cross being mocked by the Jewish leaders, by religious leaders. Come down off the cross, they said. Mocked him, spat on him. What'd he do? Nothing. It's that type of meekness and that type of restraint that I think Christians, especially those in the community of specifically the evangelical community, could really learn some lessons. With this in particular, was I offended, quote unquote, by it? Yes. Do I need to go on a tirade about it? No. I go on and keep living my life as I need to live my life. Life full of love, those showing the qualities of Jesus to others, and we move on from there. These people are going to do what they're going to do. You coming at them and getting frustrated with them isn't going to want them to have a relationship with Jesus. Isn't going to want them to know God. Isn't going to make it easier on them. So it is what it is. Look through history of the Bible. All the amount of times that God's people, quote unquote, in different scenarios, were trampled under governments, enslaved, all those things. Welcome to how hard it's to be. Like, just think about what first century Christians had to go through. We're only seeing a sliver of it right now. Get ready. It could be a lot worse. And I hope you apply that same logic and energy to those within your communities as well.
So I'll say, as a non-Christian, as an atheist, I'll say when I saw it, I was like, this is stupid. Straight up, I was like, what does that have anything to do with the Olympics? I was like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
I just thought was my take on it. I was like, you know what? If you're going to do drag and you're going to do all that stuff, like whatever, that's great in the comfort of your own home. Go nuts. Be the wild person that you are. But like, I don't know, when I see the Olympics and you see it being hosted in different countries around the world, my thought is like, say something about the history of the culture or the something that's very specific to that place that you're in or speaks to the place that you're in. And I didn't really get that from that. And it's usually like when you compare previous Olympics opening ceremonies, like the one that they had in Canada in Vancouver, like they had the big ice spikes, one that didn't quite go up all the way, which was kind of hilarious, but they did a really good job in the closing ceremonies making fun of it too, which I thought was kind of spoke to the Canadian culture a little bit too, about like being able to laugh at ourselves and make fun and but at the same time really showcase. And they had like good Canadian artists and stuff singing and like the Paris one, they had Celine Dion sing. I was like, she's Canadian. What are you doing? Like, where's your French artist?
Where's your people?
Anyway, so I don't know, from my perspective as a non-Christian, I just looked at it. I was like, this is just making a whole bunch of people angry for no reason. Mm-hmm. Why did you do that? If you put Muhammad up there, you would have basically a war on your hands. Yeah. Like, give me a break. So why the cheap shots? Second, I was like, it's dumb looking. Mm-hmm. And third, it doesn't show any representation of the place that you're in and the history, the very rich history. I was in Paris about 2 years ago, and place is cool. Like, there's a lot that happened there, a lot that went down. It was really cool to actually go around Versailles and see where, you know, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much, I don't know. That's all I'm saying on it. I just thought it was dumb.
Yeah, there's a lot of missed opportunities. I think one thing about it was really, what stood out to me too, from that perspective, from a political perspective, is I think you hit some pretty interesting points there of, you know, it's supposed to speak to the culture of the place that's hosting. And this was a very political message in that regard, where I was like, forgive me for the buzzword, but it felt very globalist. Mm-hmm. Of like, this isn't representative of France, this is representative of NATO and what we as NATO believe. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got. That's why it made no sense culturally at all. And this is where I was just like, it just felt weird. Like, you know, you compare, you know, China's opening ceremonies to those ones, and just like, it almost felt like a collision of like just a geopolitical collision course, which I thought was, as we're living the time that we're currently living in, it was really weird in that way, and it was odd. And especially, again, you Christians, you fell for the bait, honestly. Like, they wanted to rise out of you. They got it clearly. But, you know, we move on. Yeah.
Well, speaking about a rise, 55,000 Sikhs in Calgary held a demonstration outside of City Hall. They were gathering to sign a referendum in Calgary where they voted on the question of creating an independent state of Khalistan. So they're voting to actually establish a separate Sikh nation and advocate for the independence of Punjab from India. What was really crazy about this is they're literally outside of City Hall in Calgary screaming death to India. And I'm just like, what the heck? Look, what is happening? Why are you doing this outside of Calgary City Hall? Go the heck to India and do that. If that's where you want to be, if you want to create your own independent state of, you know, Khalistan, and that's what you want, fantastic. All the power to you. Go to India and go, scream in the streets there. Like, what? What the hell?
Yeah, it's the classic move, right? I think we're seeing that a lot, where we obviously have a lot of different types of cultures in the country, where now they're fighting for the causes of their past country here, and sometimes they forget. You know what? Screw it. It's our final episode before a break. The whole idea of protesting is a little new to some of these people. So there's exercise. I'm like, well, we get to do this now. Well, we can go over here and do it. Let's do it. Let's hear them out. Even though it has no burden. Like Calgary City Hall. What's City Hall going to do?
I know, right? It's just stupid.
It's
Again,
ridiculous.
Stupid. This is what I'm saying. I'm spicy tonight because I'm just like, that is stupid. This is stupid. Like, what is going on? And then I love it. And Chrystia Freeland gets up there and she's like being questioned by a reporter who asks, he said, the housing crisis in Canada has gotten to a level where we're not building enough to support the level of immigration that we have. What are we going to do where we don't have the resources, the capital, and the infrastructure to sustain this level of immigration, this level of population growth? And she goes on to say, Canada has the social capacity to welcome immigrants. I was like, that's great.
Amazing.
Wonderful. Judging by what just happened in Calgary, I don't think we have the social capital right now, because it doesn't seem like people are integrating too well right now if they're calling for an independent state in a country that's halfway across the globe.
Well, this is where I was actually so confused about this story, because I literally thought this story was going in the direction of this community in Calgary wants to create a state within Calgary.
No.
But that's why I thought this was going. And it just shows you how brain dead it all is. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. No, not even. That would actually make more sense.
That's crazy.
If they were like, we're annexing part of Calgary to create Punjab in Canada. I'm like, you know what? I'd be like, at least it makes sense that you're protesting at City Hall. What are you doing? Anyway, I don't know. I'm just like, board a plane, go protest where the protest is actually supposed to be happening, but whatever. So
Elon.
Yeah, Mr. Elon, him and Jordan Peterson, they had themselves a sit-down conversation to talk about the ridiculousness of this all. And I was like, holy crap, a breath of fresh air. And so they actually were talking about the woke movement, and they were gathered at the Gigafactory in Texas. And so for those of you who don't know, Jordan Peterson with the Daily Wire. And so he had this interview, and he was talking about Musk's personal experiences with one of his own children actually going through the transitioning process. And Musk kind of describing the fact that he felt bullied and pressured into accepting this, that, if he didn't, that he was somehow the big evil, and basically he was sentencing his child to death if he didn't go along with it. And basically he called it the woke mind virus, and was saying that he regrets it and he thinks it's evil, and he thinks that this is one of the reasons why he actually bought Twitter, was that he wanted to change the narrative and change a lot of the systems that were in place that he felt were contributing to this woke mind virus. And he was specifically referencing the fact that things around DEI and things around the transitioning, and then what eventually comes to detransitioning, and saying that the cost of human life is just horrific, and that people are losing their ability to have kids, their ability to live fulfilling lives, because they've medically damaged themselves because of what is being spread. And so it was just really, really interesting. And so the internet is in an uproar over this, because you have basically one side that's going, yes, finally, exactly, yeah, I'm only using Twitter exclusively, or X, sorry. Yeah. And then the other side being like, Elon Musk is Satan. And so it's just wild. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm going to throw it out there because it's happening right now. And if you're seeing this on the media and you're like, what the heck is this about? That's what it's about. So just kind of giving you a little bit of an update on that. Also, something I thought that was interesting that came up in the Ontario newspapers, didn't see it anywhere else, specifically came out of CTV Ontario. So the Umicore Rechargeable Battery Materials Canada Inc. is halting its $2.8 billion battery manufacturing plant in Ontario due to a slowdown in electric vehicle demand. The project, which was supposed to create over 600 jobs and received significant government grants and subsidies, halted.
Gee.
Yeah. Convenient. This is why we don't give taxpayer dollars to private companies, because you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe they're saying, it doesn't make sense for us to build these batteries or continue with this plant, continue with this investment. And that's the freedom that business should have, is to say, when it doesn't make sense, we need to halt operations. But when you're sitting there with billions of dollars from the federal government, that's supposed to create jobs, like, this is why you don't mix government funding with private business, because then it puts an impetus to actually continue the work when it doesn't make sense.
And even if you do, know what you're doing. The idea of we're just going to invest in batteries and it's going to create jobs is ridiculous, because the reason they're saying the demand for EVs is just simply not there. We're not going to add capacity for something that doesn't exist, people don't want. Like, I know we're trying to move to a more, communist society, but we're not there yet. Okay. We still believe in business and learning how, economies work. And this is one of those. Like, this is ridiculous. $2.8 billion down the chutes because of just utter stupidity.
Yeah. And what's the shame is that, like, honestly, I wouldn't mind having an electric vehicle. I think it'd be great. I think electric vehicles would be good for the system, and especially in congested cities where you have a lot more tailpipe pollution. Not so great for the countryside where you have long distances that you need to travel, and the actual carrying capacity of that environment can handle the effluent from a tailpipe. When you're in a city and you're just getting constantly bombarded by, all the hydrocarbons coming out of the back of a car, it sucks. And I get that. So electric vehicles make sense in that kind of smaller area, especially when you have like only quick commutes. But like, yeah, right now we don't have the infrastructure. So obviously people aren't going to be buying EVs. And then also the Canadian winters don't make sense for EVs.
Definitely not.
So anyway, stupid. Cool project that's happening though in Toronto is that 180 buildings have ditched their air conditioning for deep lake water cooling. So this was a really cool project. And this was something that was actually really positive in the news that I wanted to bring forward. So basically the deep lake water cooling project is the largest of its kind. And so it saves on average 90,000 megatons of electricity, which is enough to power 2,500 homes, or saves around $10.8 million a year. And so they're looking at the fact that the system costs will break even in 9 years, and the system is supposed to last upwards of 50 to 60 years.
Wow.
So really, really cool project. And this is like an example of like green infrastructure done really well that's going to just make people's lives better and that isn't intrusive.
Yeah.
It's like, yes,
I
please do more.
I don't have to give up something to be, to have the star of being green. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. More of that, please.
No, seriously.
And then on Sunday, just kind of wrap it all up. So the 338 Canada federal projections came out. They've got the Conservatives still leading with 40 seats over majority. So they're leading right now. And they're looking at a 212 seat projection.
Just a little short of that 214 that we want, man.
Yeah. Anyway, Liberals are polling at 73 seats, Bloc Québécois at 38, NDP at 18, and Green at 2.
Get rid of them.
So
Get rid of them, man. They're a waste.
Honestly, after listening to Elizabeth May the other day, I was like, oh my God, how is this lady still doing her thing? Like her co-leader was just like, nope, can't do it. Divorce.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Just disband the party at this point.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. However, what?
I was just going to say, like, the problem is that every party has a green, like, piece of legislation in their platform. So it's like, what are you even doing anymore?
Yeah. This ain't 2005 no more. There we go.
Yeah. And while you're at it, get rid of Bloc Québécois, please. Like, come on. You know what? Just get rid of them.
Dude, the French can be upset about you going after the Olympics and Celine Dion Celine Dion, I don't even know why she was performing at the Olympics, because apparently she's not a real francophone to these people over there. And, then obviously the French people up here are going to upset you.
I'm not saying anything bad about Celine Dion.
Are you
Woman's
sure?
a national treasure. I think that Celine Dion can do no wrong.
Oh.
And especially with all the crap she's going through with that stiff man syndrome, like, being able to like sing one last time, good for her. Like she did Deadpool, she did the Olympics, she's done everything.
She's doing it all.
Like woman's she can be a saint, honestly. Like I would give her saint status. Canadian treasure.
Shout out Titanic.
So is that what that was?
I was trying there.
Anyway, I'll let you get into that.
All right. So obviously, shortly, about a week ago at this point, big fires took over Jasper National Park, and unfortunately, it took out a lot of houses in the process, displaced a lot of people, and just wasn't a good time. I really, our hearts go out to those who were affected by this, and can only imagine what it'd be like to show up and your house be gone and be made to rubble. We over here in Nova Scotia can relate to the feeling or potential feeling, as wildfires took over much of our province last year and hurt a lot of people and displaced a lot of people as well, and who are still in the process of rebuilding. So we hear you on that. And the big thing I think is frustrating, because especially real people's lives are at stake, real people's businesses are at stake over this. It's more so the finger pointing that was really upsetting to me on this one. Like immediately it was like, Danielle Smith didn't do enough. Justin Trudeau can't figure his way out of a bag. He was warned in 2017 that this was an issue and he did nothing. These guys are like, it's just, oh man, like people are like things are lost over this, and then the first piece of conversation is whose fault is it? And I'm like, I mean, I hear that. Like, obviously we need to look into what was at fault and what came up short, but just like the classic, like Trudeau bad or Danielle Smith bad is just so exhausting. It's the same energy of like, Orange Man's the worst person ever. It's just like let's have some actual real thoughtful conversation of what happened here rather than just finger pointing and so on.
I look at it and I say, not yet. Don't try and like assign a cause and blame yet. Like give people a week or two, maybe a month. Give them a month break to actually like breathe, figure out how they're going to put their lives back together, send support, fund the GoFundMes, support the firefighters that are going there, support the troops that have been deployed that are actively helping. And if you have the means and ability, time, energy, whatever to support in some way, do it. But just give it a month's breathing room before you start to pull it apart and go, okay, how did this happen? Because what I was looking at is that, so Liberal MP, is that how you say his name? Kazimir Sikav.
Don't even bother. Don't even bother. You butchered it. Racist.
He's white. Anyway, so he's a Liberal MP.
Homophobe.
For Windsor-Tecumseh in Ontario. I can say that word.
Look at you go.
He was elected in 2019. He immediately runs to Twitter to say that, this is what happens when you are a climate denying conservative. It's
nice.
just like,
classic.
Give me a break.
Keep it classy.
Yeah. Here you go. President Joe Biden tonight called climate change the existential threat we see in Jasper. As our hearts break for Albertans, we pledge support. Get folks safe. But let's also be real with each other. This is the world that climate denying conservatism will leave our children.
Shut the heck up.
It's just like
so annoying.
Shut up.
Get a real job. Holy jumping.
But then he got ratioed. If you look, he's
Absolutely.
got 2.7 thousand likes, 2.9 thousand comments, and a lot of them are angry.
As they should.
As they should be. And so I'm just looking at this going like, who thought that was a good idea? But it's so frustrating when you look at it, because even when you do go back and you say like, okay, what did happen here? There was all the warnings from folks saying, this beetle infestation, this pine beetle infestation left the forest in such a state that was, made it ripe for fire. And the other thing is that, as I've said before, this landscape is a landscape that exists with fire. And we have a lot of those in Canada. It's just a fact of our forests. There's a whole spot down beside where I live that the types of trees that grow there, that I've talked about this before, are only reproduced by fire. Mm-hmm. And it's just because it's a natural part of the landscape. And so that's why with proper land management practices and resource management practices, you have controlled burns every so often so that the environment can naturally do what it's supposed to do. And what's happened is where people have kind of moved in, we don't want fire around us, obviously. We don't want our houses to burn down. But you have to do it in a controlled way so that you don't get out of control situations like this. Who's to blame for this? I'll leave that for you folks to decide. We know that the parks are federal.
Danielle Smith. It's our fault.
Parks are federal jurisdiction. We know that the province could have pushed harder to have that cleaned up. I think that the multiple people share the blame in this, and it's not one person's fault. It's just it's a tragedy, honestly. But
Here's a real question, though.
Yep.
Danielle Smith doing her address. Real tears, fake tears?
I think real tears. I think that from what I've seen of her and what I experienced when we met her up in Ottawa, I think she's real deal. I think that was genuine.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with that. It was tough to see at first because obviously, like, things are so fake in everything we do. Like, you have to question everything. But she's a robot, if I'm being honest. Like, she's a robot. So just to see that kind of emotion, I was like, that has to be real. There's no way someone's like, in her team's like, you got to look like you're sad about this. She's not a drama teacher.
No,
she's
not.
So
and I think it's because of all of her time in media, right? It's like when you can stand up there, like we said last week, and be like, 13 people died last week. And now 5 easy ways to prepare your kitchen. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you could do that, there's something a little bit crazy. But I think that was a moment of just emotion where she realized just how deeply affected these people were and how deeply affected she was, seeing that this is a place that Albertans really treasure. And when I was there back in 2012, like it is a beautiful, beautiful spot. So to see that all lost to fire would be really, really hard.
Well, one thing I want to hit in your note here, which I thought was really interesting, is former senior planner for Jasper National Park, Peter Scholes, blaming unresponsive and politicized leadership at Parks Canada.
Yeah.
That I feel like is a story of pretty much all of our major institutions in this country and in the West. Politics have just really got so ingratiated in things that we're supposed to rely on that the right decisions aren't being made. It's being made in a vacuum, being made with a political alliance in mind and not for what's actually the best thing to do.
I get annoyed because when I look at the fact that the federal government has committed north of $200 billion with a B, billion dollars on aspects of climate change abatement. It's like, where was the money for proper resource management?
Oh, I mean,
national parks.
We learned about the slush fund, the green slush fund. We know it's just going to their friends and they're funneling them to all their great crony friends. So.
I know. And I'm looking at the fact that if you look at the Canadian economy, $2.14 trillion, this would be about 10% of our economy, this amount of money that they've put out to green programs. And then looking at last year's budget, which was $432.9 billion, this would be like half their budget. Obviously, knowing that they didn't spend the $200 billion all in 1 year, we get it. It was over the number of years. But Guilbeault standing up and saying, like, proudly, that they've spent over $200 billion on 100 programs that work towards the climate. And it's like, and then you wonder why NATO's mad. They're like, if this is 10% of your GDP and you can't meet your 2% for our commitments, like, what the hell, man? So I feel for the former parks manager when he's saying that, this is ridiculous. We've been warning you for eons here about this, and we knew that something bad could happen, and you're not spending the money where we need it. And then you look at how much money they're spending elsewhere in the name of climate change. And then they're calling this the act of climate change, which, believe what you want. If this is like something that's resulting from climate change, don't you think you should take some of that money and go remediate it before it becomes a fire? Like, if you know so much. So it's just frustrating.
And well, it just goes back to another situation that happened on the opposite side of the country with another sensitive issue with the shooting that happened here in Nova Scotia and how politicized the RCMP got over that too. And people not getting the right answers at the right time because politics just ingratiated the system in such a crazy way that people's lives are lost over it. Like, get your crap together. Like, figure it out. People in leadership, those who are in these institutions, figure it out. These people are dying over your lack of action and dying because I want the Liberals to win. No, I want the Conservatives. I want you to look bad. I want him to look bad. Like, shut up. I want the promotion. I don't care. People are dying over this stuff, and I'm so sick of it, seeing it at every high level of our institutions across the country, across the board.
Speaking of institutions.
Don't get me started. I'll say one last thing first before we get into these institutions. These green plans the Liberals have brought forward, by far, I will on the record say right now, the biggest scam run by this government. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, is it any wonder? I mean, how many scams? We did that already last week. What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago?
Feels like the whole year.
I know. The whole year's just been that.
It's been a whole scam.
Here's a scam now. Here's a scam. And it's funny because I was listening to the Toronto Sun this morning, actually, and they were talking about the fact, they're like, have Canadians just become numb to all the scandals? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, have they just like lost faith in government? I'm like, yes. Yeah.
Yes to
like,
all the above.
Why are you even asking these questions?
Yes, 100%, dude.
But yeah, it's been this one we need a break because it's just stupid.
But yeah, speaking of things that are happening at institutions.
Okay,
here in Halifax, sir. Here in Halifax, what the frick's going on, dude? I saw you put this in our note today, and I was looking it up online. I can't find anything about this. What is happening here?
So, I am a former Dal grad.
Shoot.
I had my undergrad there. I had my master's there, and I'm actually looking at pursuing my PhD there because they do a good job in their education, and they do a good job at supporting their students. However, they've been very patient and very lenient with these individuals who are part of the Liberation of Palestine Al Zitoun University. I'm just butchering everything tonight, so get used to it.
They deserve it. They deserve it. It's all good.
Anyway, so basically it's a group of students who are pro-Palestine protesters. They've been occupying the quad, they call it. So it's a big green area in front of the administrative building of Dalhousie University. And basically they've been demanding that the university release their investment portfolio, and they've been asking them to divest of different companies, to cut all ties with anyone who is associated with Israel or supports Israel. There's like a student exchange program on Dal campus, actually run out of the business school, that actually supports students to study in Israel, and then other students from Israel to study at Dal. It's kind of like a working relationship between the two countries. It's, well funded, and anybody I know who's gone through it has only raved about how amazing it's been. They're calling for that to end. And so basically they said, we're not leaving until our list of demands has been met. The university has been saying, we'll look at this, we'll think through it, we'll talk about it, but you can go home. We've heard you. We're looking at this. There's things that we can think about doing, and there's things that we're not going to do. We just sorry. And so these folks that have been camping out there have said, nope, not until every single one of our demands have been met, which, like, to me is kind of like, do you not understand the spirit of compromise? But they're just like, they're very, I will say, almost religious in their 100%, conviction
100%
on this. And so what basically happened is that Dal today, the university, closed the campus. They said, sorry.
Their response was to close the campus?
No. They closed the campus, sent security out.
Took care of business.
Sent the police out.
Let's go.
Issued them some do not trespass notices.
Yeah.
And said, you got to go. And they said, we are not leaving. We're not leaving. So they said, well, you're going or you're getting arrested.
Oh, let's go.
Get out.
We're actually using our law enforcement now these days. We actually figured out what those are. Congratulations. Haven't used that since 2020. Sorry, just say that a little.
So they closed the campus to do this. And then it was this, I don't want to make light too much of it, but so these folks were like, oh crap, we're going to get arrested if we stay in the quad. So then they went down to the Rowe School of Business, and they were like, we're occupying the Kenneth C. Rowe Management Building.
Oh, gosh.
And then campus police were like, nah, you're not. And so it's like, jokes. You're gone from there too. And so what I thought was most interesting though is they interviewed one of the local social media platforms interviewed one of the students that was for this movement, and he gets up there and he starts calling it the student antifada. And is like wearing the kifa, completely covered, nothing but his eyes showing, and waving a Palestinian flag. And he's talking about how the university has failed and how they need to, do more. And it's just like, man, like, come on. Like, if you really feel this strongly, go to the Israeli embassy, go to like the Middle East, like, you know what I mean? Like, do things that you feel are, aligned with your values and things, but get off the campus. Like, this is not where decisions are being made over this war. Sorry. Even if they went to like freaking Ottawa, I'd feel like at least you're doing more there, because maybe that's a joke. Our government is going to do anything. But still, it would make more sense. Yeah. Anyway, so it just stupid.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. It's all
theme of the night.
It's destabilization techniques, right? That's really all this is. And it's really trying to undermine Canada's institutions and what we're trying to have happen over here. And that's just, obviously Dalhousie is a really small part of all that, but it's a part of it because it's attacking a lot of our major universities across the country. And so I'm glad, I will say, as I'm proud of Dalhousie. I never thought I'd say that in my life, but proud of them actually stepping up and taking care of business over here and not being afraid of how they're going to be viewed.
Yeah, well, this is the problem, is that they have a lot of professors, they have a lot of folks who are Jewish, who have ties to Israel. They have a lot of really good programs, like I said, that are, like the exchange is one of them. So I think that it would be a huge loss to the university if those relationships were damaged. And I think that they did do their due diligence in allowing people to have their voices heard. I think that universities should be institutions of free speech, free thought, and thoughtful debate. But it's to the point where there's no more thoughtful debate. It's not free speech anymore. It's a list of demands and then basically just unrest in a space that's supposed to be public.
See, I used to believe that. I used to believe in universities should be a place of free thought and have those conversations and extending that to others. But when groups come up and the minute they get power, they will never extend that to you. So in return, I will never extend that to them because they are not operating on the same playing field as we are. And I will not, they don't get to discuss their ideas because they are coming from a place of literally just trying to dominate culture and trying to dominate people. And we don't have room for that here, period.
But I feel like that's kind of the challenge just in society today, right? It's like people are so self-righteous about their beliefs and their convictions. And it's just everything is a life and death thing. And honestly, we can realize in the Middle East right now, that conflict is life and death for those folks. But in Canada, it's not life and death for you. Mm-hmm. So I think that there is room for thoughtful conversation in Canada where two parties have to come being open and willing to hear the other side. Yep. And if that's not the situation, it's not a conversation. It's a screaming match.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened at Dal has devolved into. It's just become a yelling match, and the university realized that, and they said, well, we will discuss it in our, sitting in September when all the folks are back. But as of right now, we need you to go because you've left a huge mess, and we need to get the campus ready for new students to come in and be able to enjoy, because you've literally left it a mess, and we have to pay to clean it up.
Yeah, well, yeah. Also, I'm sure they'll be the first ones to be like, climate change is the existential threat to our society. Sweet. Well, moving on to existential threats to our society. I was kidding. I'm not going to pull a Democratic playbook out of this. But so our fearless leader, PM Justin Trudeau, went to his favorite vacationing spot over in Tofino. Love that spot. Gets to surf. Gets to sunbathe. Gets to
show the upper arms.
Bare arms, the only bearing arms he actually believes in. And
those arms are white, man.
Dude, you haven't seen nothing yet, brother. You haven't seen nothing yet. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
That's called the golf tan.
Yeah, there you go.
Doing a lot of that this summer. Anyways, Trudeau loves to bare arms and do his thing up on the beach over there. Kean Bext works with the Counter Signal. I believe he founded it. gets on a plane, finds out where this man's at, goes to this very off the beaten path locale in coast of BC, tracks down Trudeau on the beach with his family, and starts grilling him on things he's done as prime minister. Yada yada.
He waited there for 4 hours, he said. He waited there on the beach. He was like, I know the motorcade is here. I can see that there's security detail around. He's like, I know he's here. I know he's here. Waited on the beach for 4 hours to see him.
To get a 12-minute interview with this man. And it was chaos. It was very chaotic to watch it all transpire. Obviously, he put Trudeau in a very impossible situation where, it was kind of a weird, you see the video where, it was, I guess, Trudeau's entourage, or I don't want to say his entourage, like clearly his family.
Security detail.
I don't even think it was a security detail because it looked like guys who looked like they just got off vacation themselves. It was like 4 or 5 people, and they definitely didn't look like security. It looked like people that were actually like his friends who were trying to get in between him and Kean. And then Trudeau just like actually tried to de-escalate the situation himself. He's like, you know what? No, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a chat. And he gave him a 12-minute interview. And obviously it went the way it went, as you would expect with someone like that. But the way Trudeau operates.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second, though. He de-escalated that after he laid hands on him, though, and grabbed him.
Actually, no, he laid hands on him after that. Was it? Oh, yeah, laid hands on him. Family got involved. Yeah. Then he was like, no, let's go for a walk. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So it was kind of a whole thing was kind of weird. But I think you and I see this from very 2 different perspectives. Okay. And so I'm going to allow you to go first on like what happened here and what did you grab from this interview that Kean had with him?
So what I thought was interesting is that I really kind of don't like the idea that we have to track people down on their vacations in order to talk to them. I think that it shows that we've gotten to a state in our political sphere where we are not allowing reporters to talk in the avenues that they should be allowed to talk. Like he kind of went on to say, I've tried to attend the media briefings. I've tried to go to these different open forums where I would be allowed to ask questions, and I've been escorted out. I've been told that I'm not vetted and I can't ask questions. And that's where I kind of have a problem with all this, is that I think that if he would have been allowed to actually ask his questions in the correct channels, and where I think that, honestly, I think that anybody should be able to go to these situations and say, I want to ask the Prime Minister X, whether you're part of legacy media or you're not. And that is the forum for this. And that's just not how it works in Canada. And so he kind of said, I don't have the opportunity to ask you these questions, so I'm going to track you down, find you, and ask you these questions. I do think that as a human being, that Trudeau should have time with his family alone, away from the spotlight, away from media, to be able to spend time with his family. I totally get that. He put that out there, and he put that out there as a pretty solid narrative. And I don't know if that was just him saying it to try and control the conversation, or if that was him being genuine. It's so hard to tell with him. But I do think the fact remains that I think that people need time and need their own privacy. And I know that if I was a politician and that was me, I wouldn't appreciate that. However, what do you do in a scenario where you have somebody who's limiting free speech so badly in the country that that's the only opportunity you have to talk to somebody and ask them a question? Because he just is completely dodging it. And it was funny because he called him, he said he's hiding out in Tofino right now. He's hiding from his caucus and he's not taking questions. So as, the leader of our country, I'm going to go ask him some questions. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really love it, but I understand why it happened. And so that's kind of where I sit with it. The things that came out of Trudeau's mouth, though,
they were interesting. They were wild.
That was what I was just like, oh man, you're a narcissist, like real bad. Like everybody says he's a narcissist, and it's like I've heard that and I've been like, yeah, I think it's kind of wild that he won't step down. He'd rather see his party burn to the ground. But then when he's just like, I work harder than most Canadians, I was just like
that was tough.
Oh,
that was tough.
So I did a little number digging for you, just for fun on that specific quote. So in his tenure, he's taken around 680 days as personal days. which represents 24% of his time. The average Canadian, if we're looking at them getting all the 12 stat holidays, if they take 5 sick leave days, which they're usually entitled to, and get 3 weeks vacation, which is another 15 days, that's 32 days or 9% of their working year they get as their own personal time. So, dude, what the heck are you saying? Like, you're like 2.5 times the amount of personal time than the average Canadian. And that's a good average Canadian who's getting all of the stat holidays, all of the vacation that they're entitled to, and then also taking all 5 sick days. Like, ridiculous. So for him to be like, oh, I'm working harder than the rest of Canada, like, shut up.
And the problem is that the amount that he's taken off, like I get it from like a normal person's perspective. I think it's really important to get your vacation, get your time off. Obviously, we're taking a month to break ourselves. But when you're leading a nation, there's different rules that apply to you, I'm sorry to say. And as much as I didn't like the guy and how he did his thing, Obama was always working. Like that man didn't take a whole lot of days off. Like,
Yeah.
he was always like, because there's so much at stake. Like, there's just so much at stake. And I just don't think Trudeau ever understood the position he's in. He never really fully understood that he's a leader of a country. He understood that he could control people. He loved that people gave him attention. But I don't think he fully understood really what the responsibilities of a leader really were of a country. And this showed all of that. Seeing how much time he's taken off and then turn around saying, I work harder than the rest of you jabronis. Get better, be me. Get out of my face, bro. It was rough.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see where your disagreement with me is.
I wouldn't say it's disagreement with you. I'm disagreeing with Kean on this one. I get why he did it. I understand his perspective of like, wow, I've been shut out for 9 years on this guy. I'm finally going to get a chance to have a conversation with him. Totally get that. The problem is, from a normal, super normie political perspective, people who don't really pay attention all the time, but this kind of like pop in from time to time, this was such a big L. Like, they see this and they're just like, who's this guy? Who's another person just hassling with the Prime Minister again? Like, it's just like, normal people look at this and think, Kean, I love you. I think you're a great dude. But like, normal people are looking at this saying, you kind of look like a loser. Like, it has that vibe, and unfortunately I have to say it. And it just kind of reeks of desperation in some ways. And I say that because there was no, like, obviously we talked about what kind of came out of the little bit that was shared outside the paywall. But there really wasn't a whole lot of bombshell moments of this interview. Like, his questions weren't like groundbreaking. It was just kind of stuff we all knew already. He was just going over stuff we already knew. I don't fully understand what if it's one thing to finally get the opportunity, have a chance conversation with them. But I just thought better questions would have been asked. That's all. That was my perspective on it, and I feel like it was a bit of a waste.
Yeah, I still think that, like I said, I still think that the fact that he grabbed him on vacation, like, I don't know how they're going to try and spin that, because I think maybe I can see how they would spin it to say like, look, Trudeau's on vacation again, huh? And then you're gonna get left-wing media who's gonna say, look, this man's just trying to take a breather and he's being hassled even when he's, just. So I just think that it's, yeah, I don't know what it adds. I agree. Like I said, outside of that comment though, like, I don't know what it really adds, because we all knew that he was in love with himself. Yeah. So the fact that he said that, I think that's really damning to him politically, but I just think it's a weird moment.
And as well too, where, and I understand why the interview's behind a paywall. I totally get it. Like, they expended a lot of money to try and get Kean on the beach there when they found out where Trudeau was going to be. But I'm like, if there really was something of substance in that interview, 100% that would have been clipped and shared by now to get people to pay to go watch the interview. I didn't see anything that was like clip worthy in anything that's been released.
So I watched the interview, the whole thing.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I didn't really find that there was a whole lot in it. Mm. I mean, he asks him about the the Online Harms Act and saying, you know, if this is really about children, why didn't you, or why wouldn't you separate these two pieces of legislation that you kind of jam together? This seems like it's just censoring Canadians. And he doesn't really speak to it very much. He just kind of like, no, it's not about that. And then they kind of move on. And then he asked another question about, you know, why he's not speaking to his caucus. And Trudeau's like, I'm not speaking to my caucus. I'm just on vacation right now. So it just, I didn't find that there was like you said, anything groundbreaking. The only thing that I thought was funny was the clip about him being the hardest worker in the room. Yeah. And I was like, man, like, it's tough. Everybody talks about the orange man being like not very humble. And like, we got our own version. He's just got better hair.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's tough that way. So that's like, again, I appreciate for the most part what Counter Signal does. You know, I've met some of the people over there. I haven't met Kean personally, but like, you know, seen him from afar, you know, similar circles. But that was just like, I understand trying to seize an opportunity. I just feel like it just missed a bit. That's all. And so again, back to like how normal people would see this, I think it's just a big L, unfortunately. So, but people will get upset at me like they got upset at you last week, you know, but it is what it is.
Oh, they got upset at me last week.
Dude, they get upset at you every week.
Oh, good. I hope so.
You're the lefty on the podcast, sir.
There's one person I'll say I'm specifically trying to up my wardrobe game just for them because they comment on the YouTube like, I'm here every week just to see the different outfit Reg puts on. I was like, oh, I didn't think I was stylish.
Now Reg is going to come on with a new shirt every week now. Just for that's why we're taking a month off.
Yeah, exactly.
So he can get some more wardrobe.
Yeah, I got to get some new digs.
Gee, okay. By-election season, sir.
Yeah. So Trudeau came out and he said, we need to have some by-elections here because we're losing people. They're all jumping ship. So who specifically? So Liberal David Lametti. So he held LaSalle and Mard Verdun in Montreal. And he was the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada after Jody Wilson-Raybould got removed. And so he notably was in power and in that position during the trucker convoy and during all of the pandemic fiasco. And then he was removed from cabinet. And so when he was removed in that cabinet shuffle in the summer of 2023, that following January, which would have been this past January, he was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm resigning. So after that, Trudeau was like, okay, I guess we're going to need to have a by-election here to fill that seat because you're gone. And then in Elmwood, Transcona,
we'll go with that.
Yeah. So Bill Blakey, he was an NDP minister. He got called up to work in the provincial office with Wab Kinew, supporting him and supporting his leadership and being an advisor for him. And so he was like, screw this federal game. It's for the birds. I'm not seeing how we're going to win this. And took the better meal deal with the province. So he's gone. So they said, well, we have to have another by-election there. And the Conservatives Party has gone absolutely wild. They're just looking for that moment to jump in and take more seats before the upcoming election. And I'm looking at this going, we've got Andy Fillmore in Halifax.
Andy Fillmore gone.
Who's gone. He's going to be running for mayor. So if he gets mayor, that's going to be another by-election that needs to be held. What happens if all of these Liberals and NDPs just start dropping like flies and they just get consecutively replaced by Conservatives? Could we have a state where we have enough people that it dissolves this ridiculous
That would
supply?
Be crazy. That would be it. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
It's never happened before.
Dude, that actually legitimately could happen. That's crazy.
Put that one on the bingo card, folks. Wouldn't that be wild?
We end up having an election just strictly because of so many by-elections got lost by Liberals and won by Conservative. That's crazy.
So
people hated their jobs so much. There was mass people quitting that they ended up getting replaced by Conservatives. That would be wild.
So we'll see what happens. But I don't know I think it would take a lot of people to do that. Somebody else can do the math because I'm too tired. I'm going on vacation. But but yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
That'd be crazy. Yeah, that would be crazy, dude.
But speaking of the next election, we found out that we're going to be having 5 more NPs in the House of Parliament.
Yes.
So House of Commons in Parliament.
House of Cards.
Basically. So the electoral boundaries have been redrawn. We're getting 5 new MP positions. And Northern Ontario is losing an MP position.
Wow.
So they're going from previously having 10 down to 9. So what's interesting, though, is that the Conservatives are actually supportive of this, and the Liberals and the NDP were not. I'm not quite sure the makeup of this area, but in Northern Ontario, they were basically saying that it's probably going to go Conservative anyway. You had a couple different pollsters that were at Global News that were basically saying, like, yeah, we saw this happen the last time too. It's gonna be a blue wash. It's gonna go Conservative. So I'm guessing that Conservatives were probably like, meh, it's probably not a big deal. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, how much of the country really is going liberal at this point?
Not much, as we saw by the poll.
Seriously.
But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that we're going to have a few more members. And so those members are going to be primarily in Alberta because they were looking at folks based off of population demographics. So they're looking at BC is going to get 1. I think Alberta is going to get 3 out of the 5. And the other one's going to go to Ontario because those are all areas that saw major population growth. And so there was 1 going in Calgary and 2 going into Edmonton specifically. Right. So, yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Speaking of more elections, obviously we go south of the border here, and Joe Biden got tossed to the wolves. Kamala Harris is now filling in, who's supposed to be going to be taking the nomination. And now it's really interesting how the narrative swung so much in 6 months. From Joe Biden is sharp, he can still do it, he knows what he's doing, even though everything our eyes and ears were seeing was like he was not in good shape. And then they threw him onto the debate, got absolutely smoked by Trump, which I believe was part of the plan. And then there's like, oh, Joe Biden clearly can't do this job. He's looking rough. All right, Joe Biden, step down. No, I'm not, sir. No. Joe Biden, you're sit down, get out of here. And he finally was like, all right, I'll step down. All right. Addressing the nation tonight. I'm stepping down as your leader, but I'll still serve hard. Yeah. It was kind of a weird situation. And so obviously as the VP, naturally Kamala comes in, and the Democrats, not living up to the name of their party, installing a leader rather than actually having an election. And this was all kind of weird because they had the primaries happen already. And the idea was like, they just said, Joe Biden's our guy. We're not going to bother having primaries. And they did this to kind of ice out RFK. From my perspective, I think that's what they did. Mm-hmm. And then they had him go debate Trump in the middle of June, which was never seen before. That was such an early time for a debate to happen between for the presidency. And then this all happens. And it's like, okay, well, we're only a few weeks to the DNC. Oh, Kamala, how about you get in? And then, obviously she'll officially get voted in if that's who they want at the DNC. And of all people, everyone's just kind of like, this is like a coup literally happened in front of your eyes. And no, everyone's just kind of like, seems normal. It's just like, bro, the person who took the presidency didn't get voted in.
Yeah.
Like, she is the ultimate DEI hire I've ever seen in my life. She got appointed by Joe Biden to be the VP. And then Joe Biden gets forced to step down. And then there's like, yeah, you're going in. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now? And it's always bonkers. It's crazy bonkers. And the reason why I bring up the DEI thing is because that's literally, Joe Biden's very clear. We want to have the first black female be vice president in this country. And that's what they did. And the reason I bring this up is because of all the groups in the country, of all the people that can be upset about this, Black Lives Matter put out a statement saying they are not stoked about this. And this is what they had to say, which I thought was really interesting. says Black Lives Matter demands that the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, immediately host an informal virtual snap primary across the country prior to the DNC convention in August. We call for the Rules Committee to create the process that allows for public participation in the nomination process, not just a nomination by party delegates. The current political landscape is unprecedented, with President Biden stepping aside in a manner never seen before. This moment calls for a decisive action to protect the integrity of our democracy and the voices of black voters. While Joe Biden wasn't our preferred candidate, we cannot ignore the troubling actions of the Democratic Party. The DNC refused to host debates during the primary, even though a vast majority of Democratic voters wanted them. This would have likely allowed America to see the decline of Joe Biden in 2023. The DNC changed the primary schedule and created rules that made it almost impossible for non-Biden candidates to appear on the ballot, effectively clearing the field of any challengers to the incumbent president. Following the primary where millions of black voters weighed in, after one poor debate performance, the DNC party elites and billionaire donors bullied Joe Biden out of the race. They said everything that apparently was a conspiracy theory over the past 6 months. This is crazy. I was like, Black Lives Matter. What? Yo, you may have caused $6 billion worth of damage, but gee, you're doing damage to DNC on top of that. Holy jumping.
They didn't stop there in the streets.
No. Holy jumping. I was like they literally hit every point that we've been like bringing up issues about.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll give them kudos. I was like, finally, at least someone said it. And it's crazy that it came from them, of all people on the left. But look, that's literally happening. Like, this is so undemocratic on so many levels. And the fact that like it was 100%, like even like the fact they have like the delegates and the super delegates that have people that have more voting power in the party. It's like they made sure to rig that party so they don't have a President Trump happen in theirs.
Yep.
Do we remember 2016 at all? Anybody? That should have and would have come down to Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. But they screwed Bernie over 6 ways a Sunday, and he took it, and they just slipped Hillary in. But Bernie was talking about all the same things Trump was saying, but just in a little bit more palatable of a way.
Yeah.
And like, do you know how many Bernie bros became Trump supporters after that?
Oh, yeah.
It is huge. Like, they had very similar platforms. And Democrats are like, yeah, we're never having another Bernie thing happen again. So we're going to make sure we keep installing our candidate. And now they're being exposed for it. So, I mean, kudos to BLM stepping out and saying something about it. But like, it's happening in front of our eyes. The craziest things, and I get it, over the past month, the craziest things that we've ever seen in our lifetimes, let alone generations, have all happened within 2 weeks of each other. And I get that the people are just kind of like, oh, I guess well, this is just normal, I guess. No, the crap is hitting the fan, y'all, and we are just so inundated with information that it's so hard to see, but it's bonkers out there right now.
It's so funny. There was a meme that I saw come up about this, and it's this guy. He goes, "Bring me your dead," and it's like he's in the like the Monty Python outfit, yeah. And they've got Kamala Harris going, "Here's one," and then Joe Biden on her back going, "I'm not dead yet." Yeah. I was like, that's exactly what we're seeing. Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up, and so glad that Black Lives Matter brought it up too, is the fact that she was not elected. This is not democratic. And I'm so glad that I'm not in that situation right now, in that country right now, looking at this going, are you serious right now?
How are they just getting away with it? Yeah, like it is mind-boggling. And the only thing that is troubling to me is the fact that people are eating it up. Like, I texted you about this earlier this week, but I was out golfing with somebody, and they brought up the politics and what's going on, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Kamala's doing well. Like, people love her."
No, they don't.
I was like, "What world are you living in, brother?" Do you know she couldn't even get through the first round when she was trying to run for president in 2020? No one likes her. Tulsi Gabbard took her out at the knees, and on top of that, let's not talk about her record as the state, whatever,
crown attorney.
The crown attorney. Like, I don't know if that was her title, but it was somewhere around those lines where she made sure people who had petty felonies stayed in jail so they get free labor and work the fields in California.
I wonder if they felt unburdened by what has been.
Just like she is the worst that you really could pull out, and people know it. And again, we're seeing the gaslighting happen again. They did the same thing with Joe Biden. They're doing it with Kamala, and people are eating it up. When I've talked to people and they kind of bring up stuff like this, and I just hear them out, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know how deep you look at politics, and it's about surface level, because there's no way in God's green earth like you think this is legitimate. Like in the same conversation, the person may have brought up the idea of like, yeah, it clearly wasn't a bullet that hit Trump. It was just a ricochet. I was like, yikes. Are you kidding me, brother? Are you kidding me? You sound psychotic.
Did you ask them if they fell out of a coconut tree? Man,
Good call out.
Did you not get the unburdened one? That's another one of her phrases.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh man,
Yep.
I'm trying to remember the third one, but there's just like so many of these stupid things that she said, and I'm just like, really? Like, America, you have so many people, so many people, like 340 million people. And this is what you got.
Well, I was talking to my wife about this. Like, I was like, well, okay, like she doesn't have all this stuff. So she's like, okay, why don't you like Kamala? And I was like, because she makes Trudeau look smart. She's a moron.
Does.
She's so dumb. And it's one of those situations where, and again, I shouldn't say dumb. It's a little too, it's a low-brow thing to say. But like, she's not intelligent. And the thing is, when she talks, we see in these conversations, these speeches, it's one thing for Joe Biden to slip up. It's like, okay, he's getting old. He's clearly got dementia. He's not all there. She has no excuse for saying and doing the same things. And people just don't see it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I just love the things that we are doing are important to do now in the time in which we are doing them. What?
Great job, Freeland.
What is this word salad?
Yeah, they're all, seems like all the freaking leadership from the Liberal Party and the DNC down in the States all going to the same conferences, it seems, and getting speaking from the same people. Man, it's crazy the dumb things they say and how they try to spin things. It's bonkers. And so we'll continue to see what happens. And that's the last thing I'll say about this is now the narrative is like, oh yeah, Kamala and Trump, they should, do a debate. And Trump's like, no, I'm not debating her. And now the narrative's being like, oh, he's scared of Kamala. He doesn't want to debate Kamala. And all Trump said, he's like, literally, you guys aren't even at the DNC yet. I don't even know if she's going to be the nominee. Look at what you guys are doing over there. Who am I going to debate her? I don't know if she's going to be here next month. I'm not scared of anybody. I just took a bullet for this country. Are you kidding me? Holy jumping. Shut the heck up.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well,
I'm on one. Really. We going to wild card?
Do you have one?
I do.
I have one too.
All right. I'll pull yours out. All right, hit me up.
I'm just hoping I didn't send this to you earlier in the week because I do that so often.
Well, honestly, I haven't really been looking at any of her messages this week, unless it's been a text. I've just been so not on social. All I saw was you singing to an empty parking lot. So
anymore because white women need a cause. You're supposed to say unhoused. It's far more humane. That's what they decided from their homes, probably. They just call each other on the phone like, hey, Amanda, what are we gonna do about homeless? Megan, it's a real problem. Just the other day, I was driving and I saw someone on the street corner holding a sign that said, homeless. I rolled down my window. I said, excuse me. It's unhoused.
And that's how I feel about a lot of this stuff.
True. Dude, that honestly is it in a nutshell, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Did you fall out of a coconut tree? Yeah. Gee. Well, on that note, I'll bring mine up here. Holy jumping. Let's go here. This is the theme of things I typically have shared with you in private. Now I'm bringing it to the public sphere, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And it's the comments for me, dude. Instead of kiss, it's kiss.
Little kiss, Nacho Libre voice.
Oh,
They made the kiss small.
yeah. So yeah, those who are just listening on audio, yeah, it was a man who was ready to go to a Kiss concert, and then ended up it was a concert,
A cover band.
a cover band, and the cover band happened to be people who are little people.
You love little people.
Dude, they're the best. Little people wrestling are awesome. Those are fantastic to watch. They're great. Dude, shout out the little people. And then also shout out Disney not casting little people for the dwarves in Snow White. They've gone so woke they exclude everybody now. Justice for the little people, sir. Justice for the little people, man. Gee.
Oh, man.
Good times.
We need a month off.
Yeah, it's been a tough time. Well, yeah, well, I'll say this. I'll end it off with this is we love you all. We think you're all awesome. Thank you so much for sticking with us. For some of you have been with us for close to 5 years, 4.5 years with us. Others who've picked us up in the past year, 2, 3. We think you're all are awesome. We're really grateful for all of you. Even those who think that we got with some of the conservatives were upset with us last week, which was kind of funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give it to me. What were they upset about?
They were upset that the fact that we weren't calling out the destabilization of our country, but just talking around it. We're giving all the reasons of things that are happening that the government's doing or whatever. There's like, you guys, this is all planned to just take us all out. Why don't you just say it? And I was like, because if we just come out and say it, we lose people. And it's more so good to talk about what's happening. So people just kind of catch on to what's going on. Yes, clearly destabilization is happening to our country. It was like, they're more so getting out of like the immigration and the lack of housing in the country is what they're getting at. It's like, clearly they're trying to like discourage us and like trying to take out our country. Like the government's just doing this to really cause a huge stir and cause a lot of issues so that we can't actually, like our country does fall apart eventually. And that's where they were coming from on it. And there's like, you guys don't talk about this. Just call it out for what it is. And I was like,
but like, I don't know if I actually believe that.
And that's fine. Like, that's
So
fine.
that's why I didn't say that. See, I answered all the questions on YouTube about safe supply and about decriminalization and legalization.
Yeah, the people were fired up with that one.
They were very fired up about that one.
Expected that.
Yep, me too. And so, yeah,
Hashtag.
yes. But yeah, no, I still stand by what I said. And it was funny because I actually ended up having a really good conversation with a guy, and he was like, I'm a recovering addict, and this was my lived experience. And I said, I'm currently going through it with family members right now. So had a really good conversation about it. And, the baseline agreement is that we can't be throwing people in jail because it's not going to solve it. But at the same time, there needs to be something done. And giving people who are obviously struggling more drugs is not helping. So it was just kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like, there's some pretty obvious things we can count here. And it's like, okay, now moving forward, what does this look like? And that's something that needs to be explored. But yeah, most people were pretty good. So I was like, great. I got nothing bad to say. And then I love all the people who are just like, you guys are the best. You guys rock. I was like, I should have written down their names. My computer's dead now,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I feel like that actually means a whole lot. And that actually, when I read that, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like this gives me the strength and the courage to keep doing what we're doing and keep pushing boundaries. Cause I'm in a position where, I could very easily be canceled out of my job. Mm-hmm. So, and I really appreciate the people who get something from this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're taking a month off, but, still thinking about you guys that are out there that really appreciate us doing this, and we appreciate you.
Absolutely. Continue to be patient. We'll be back in a month. We're excited to do that. And I will say we actually got a few emails this past week.
Ooh.
From store owners about what we talked about with what's going on with the young people not being able to get jobs, temporary foreign workers taking those jobs, and they actually had some different things to say about it, and a couple of them are interested in actually conversating about it. So I'll say to those who have emailed us, I've seen your emails. We will be getting back to you over the next month or so. We just obviously haven't touched it because we're going on break here. So, but we will be responding back to you. So I did think that was really interesting. You had very good insights. So.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to Jennifer L the other day too, and I was saying like, man, we should like get somebody on to actually talk about the Indian Act. And she's like, definitely, I'd be definitely interested in being a part of that conversation. So that should be coming up in the works too. So we're gonna have all kinds of things to talk about this fall.
Fall will be good times. Well, on that note, whatever it is you're doing, whether you be having a coolie pop,
Sitting on the beach,
or going and surfing in the ocean.
in Tofino.
Specifically in Tofino. Whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out.
Peace.